Before we get into the story, leave a comment and let us know what city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. The hospital cafeteria smelled like weak coffee and antiseptic, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like anxious bees. Maya Collins sat at a corner table, staring at her laptop screen, the cursor blinking mockingly at her half-finished article. She was a medical journalist, not a doctor, though lately the line between reporting on medicine and practicing it felt thinner than the hospital's watered-down soup. Her best friend, Dr. Rachel Kim, slid into the seat across from her, white coat swishing, stethoscope dangling like a badge of honor Maya would never earn. "You look stressed," Rachel said, stirring sugar into her coffee with mechanical precision. "Still chasing that pharmaceutical corruption story?" Maya nodded, rubbing her temples. "If I could just get one executive to talk, one whistleblower willing to go on record, I'd break this thing wide open." "But everyone's terrified of lawsuits," Rachel leaned forward conspiratorially. "Speaking of executives, there's a charity gala tonight at the Grandview Hotel. Half the pharmaceutical bigwigs in the city will be there. Major donors, CEOs, board members. Could be your chance to network." Maya's pulse quickened. A gala meant access, connections, possibly even the lead she desperately needed. But there was one small problem. I wasn't invited. I'm not exactly on the guest list for black tie events where champagne costs more than my rent. Rachel's eyes glittered with mischief. "What if you were? I have an extra invitation. My colleague Dr. Stevens can't make it, food poisoning. The ticket's going to waste anyway." Maya hesitated, her practical side warring with her ambitious side. "Won't people notice I'm not actually a doctor?" "Just don't perform any surgeries," Rachel grinned. "Seriously, most of these events are just handshaking and small talk. Wear something elegant, smile, and if anyone asks, you're a resident rotating through internal medicine. Nobody verifies credentials at cocktail parties." Against her better judgment, Maya heard herself agreeing. She told herself it was for the story, for justice, for exposing corporate greed. But a small secret part of her also wanted just once to walk through those gilded doors and feel like she belonged in a world of crystal chandeliers and important conversations. That evening, Maya stood before her closet in dismay. Her wardrobe consisted primarily of jeans, practical blouses, and one interview suit that had seen better days. Rachel, bless her generous heart, had dropped off a midnight blue evening gown that hugged Maya's curves in ways her usual clothes never attempted. The fabric shimmered when she moved, catching light like water under moonlight. Maya twisted her dark hair into an elegant updo, applied makeup with a slightly trembling hand, and slipped on heels that immediately made her regret every life choice. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The transformation was startling, like watching a caterpillar reluctantly become a butterfly while secretly missing the cocoon's safety. She looked elegant, sophisticated, almost like she actually belonged at a pharmaceutical charity gala. Almost. The Grandview Hotel rose like a glass and steel cathedral in the heart of downtown, its lobby a symphony of marble and gold. For a heartbeat, 2 heartbeats, 3. Neither looked away. Then Victoria said something shrill and possessive, breaking the spell. Ethan's attention snapped back to the socialite, but Maya could still feel the ghost of his stare like a physical touch. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What was that? Why had he been looking at her? Had he somehow recognized her deception? She needed air. Maya set down her untouched champagne and made her way toward the balcony, weaving through clusters of pharmaceutical elite whose conversations blurred into white noise. The cool night air hit her flushed face like a blessing when she finally escaped outside. The balcony was mercifully empty, overlooking the city from 20 stories up. Maya gripped the railing, inhaling deeply, trying to calm her racing pulse, his lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Dr. Collins, is it? Funny thing. I know every resident rotating through internal medicine at Mercy General. My company funds several positions there, and I've never heard your name." The world tilted sideways. Maya gripped the railing harder, her knuckles white against the metal. She opened her mouth to protest, to maintain the lie, but something in his eyes stopped her. He knew. Somehow, impossibly, he knew. And the predatory way he watched her suggested he was enjoying her panic. "I should go," Maya said, trying to move past him, but Ethan shifted slightly, blocking her path without actually touching her. It was subtle, a movement that could be interpreted as casual, but they both understood the power dynamic at play. "Not yet," he said, his voice dropping lower. "I'm curious, because your company is one of 3 pharmaceutical giants accused of price-fixing essential medications. Because people are dying because they can't afford drugs that cost pennies to manufacture, but sell for thousands. Because someone needs to hold corporations like yours accountable." She expected anger, defensiveness, the typical corporate denial. Instead, Ethan's eyes glittered with something that might have been respect, passionate speech. "But you realize infiltrating a private event under false pretenses could be considered fraud? I could have security escort you out right now, possibly even press charges." Maya's throat tightened. "Then why haven't you?" He tilted his head, studying her like she was a particularly interesting specimen under a microscope. "Because I'm curious what you hope to accomplish. Did you think someone would confess to criminal activity over champagne? That you'd overhear some damning conversation and run home to write an exposé?" "Maybe," Maya shot back, her fear giving way to frustration. "Or maybe I just wanted to see the faces of the people profiting from suffering. To understand how you all sleep at night in your mansions built on other people's medical debt." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost some of its edge. "You think you know everything about me, about my company, because you've read some articles and filed some requests. You've decided I'm the villain in your story before you've heard my side." "Then tell me your side," Maya challenged. "Explain why your company raised the price of insulin by 300% last year. Make me understand how that's anything but greed." She stood there for several minutes, trying to understand what had just transpired. She'd been caught, confronted, and somehow, instead of being thrown out or threatened with legal action, she'd been offered exactly what she'd been chasing for months: an interview with Ethan Blackwell himself. It felt like a trap. It probably was a trap. But Maya knew herself well enough to admit she was going to walk into it anyway. She left the gala shortly after, barely remembering to grab her coat, her mind spinning with questions and possibilities. In the taxi home, she replayed their conversation, analyzing every word, every inflection. The way he'd looked at her, like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. The way her body had responded to his proximity, hyper-aware of every movement, every breath. "Focus," she told herself firmly. "But I also have a fiduciary duty, legal obligations, a board of directors who'd replace me in a heartbeat if I started making decisions based purely on conscience. So what do? Navigate between impossible choices? I try to find the narrow path between ethics and economics. We have patient assistance programs that provide free medication to those who can't afford it. We lobby for healthcare reform, though you won't read about that in articles criticizing Big Pharma. We invest heavily in developing treatments for rare diseases that aren't profitable but desperately needed. It's not enough. I know it's not enough, but it's what I can do without destroying the ability to do anything at all." Maya studied him, really looked at him for the first time without the filter of her preconceptions. "When was the last time you met someone who challenged you the way you challenged me last night?" Maya stood, gathering her notes, needing distance from whatever this conversation was becoming. Mr. Blackwell, this is exactly the kind of thing that compromises journalistic integrity. I can't have dinner with someone I'm writing an article about. Then write the article first, publish it. Then have dinner with me. You're impossible, Maya said, but she was smiling despite herself. I've been called worse, usually in shareholder meetings. He walked her to the door, close enough that she caught his scent again, that cedar and bergamot that was becoming dangerously familiar. Think about it. Not the dinner, though I hope you'll consider that too. Think about the possibility that this isn't a simple story of heroes and villains. Think about the nuance. I always think about nuance, Maya replied. It's my job. Then you're better at your job than most journalists I've met. He opened the door, his hand brushing hers for the briefest moment, sending an unexpected jolt through her system. Thank you for coming, for listening, for giving me a chance to be more than a caricature. Maya left Blackwell Tower in a daze, the folder of documents heavy in her bag, her head spinning with information and confusion. She'd gone in expecting to confirm her suspicions about corporate villainy. Instead, she'd found a man who didn't fit any category she'd prepared. He was arrogant and vulnerable, powerful and constrained, defensive and disarmingly honest. And somehow, impossibly, she was attracted to him. No, she told herself firmly on the subway home, absolutely not. You're a journalist investigating his company. He's a billionaire CEO with every reason to manipulate you. This is exactly how sources compromise reporters, by making them feel special, understood, connected. You cannot fall for this. But as she sat at her desk that night, reviewing her notes and listening to the recording, she kept coming back to the moment he'd told her about his mother. The raw pain in his voice, the frustration when he talked about systemic failures, the exhaustion in his eyes when he admitted not sleeping well. Those weren't performances. She'd interviewed enough people to recognize genuine emotion. Ethan Blackwell was not what she'd expected, and that terrified her. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Don't hang up, Ethan's voice came through, lower and more intimate without the formality of his office between them. I know I shouldn't call. I know this crosses about 17 professional boundaries, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since last night. Since you stood on that balcony and called me out without fear. Since you sat in my office and refused to let me hide behind corporate speak. You're extraordinary, Maya Collins. Maya's hand tightened on the phone, her professional instincts screaming warnings, even as something else, something treacherous and warm, bloomed in her chest. Mr. Blackwell, this is completely inappropriate. I'm writing an article about your company. We can't... this isn't... She fumbled over her words. Unusual for someone who wielded language for a living, I know. His voice was rough, almost frustrated. Believe me, I know. I've been pacing my apartment for the past hour trying to talk myself out of calling, reminding myself of all the reasons this is a terrible idea. My lawyers would have heart attacks. My PR team would quit. It's professionally reckless and personally complicated, and probably the worst decision I've made since I became CEO. Then why are you calling? Because I can't remember the last time I had a real conversation with someone who didn't want something from me, who didn't care about my money, or my connections, or my ability to advance their career. You want to expose me, hold me accountable, make me uncomfortable. That's so much more honest than anything I usually encounter. And sitting across from you today, watching you process information that challenged your assumptions, seeing you struggle with nuance instead of clinging to simplistic narratives, I thought, this is someone I need in my life. You don't even know me, Maya protested weakly. No? I know you became a medical journalist after your younger brother had leukemia, And you watched your parents navigate the nightmare of healthcare costs. I know you turned down a lucrative position at a major publication to stay freelance because you didn't want editorial oversight. Limiting your investigations, I know you volunteer at a free clinic on weekends, translating medical information for non-English speakers. I know you take your coffee black with 2 sugars. You're terrified of heights but forced yourself onto that balcony last night anyway. And when you're nervous, you touch your left earring. Should I continue? Maya's fingers froze on her earring. You really did extensive research on me. I told you, I make it my business to know who's investigating my company. But somewhere between reading your articles and watching you crash that gala with such determined audacity, it stopped being business. Now I'm calling you at 9 p.m. like a teenager with a crush, fully aware I'm being ridiculous, unable to stop myself. Maya walked to her window, looking out at the city lights, somewhere among them Ethan's apartment in whatever luxury building Billionaires inhabited. This is crazy. You're a source I'm supposed to remain objective, professional, detached. Having dinner with you, or whatever you're suggesting, would completely compromise my integrity. What if you're not writing about me? What if, instead of profiling Blackwell Pharmaceuticals, you wrote about the pharmaceutical industry as a whole? The systemic issues, the regulatory failures, the perverse incentives that trap companies and patients alike? I'll help you. I'll connect you with other CEOs, with legislators, with patients. I'll give you access to information most journalists never see. You'll write a much more important article, one that could actually change things, instead of just vilifying one company. And then, when it's published, when there's no conflict of interest, maybe we could explore whatever this is. That sounds like you're trying to redirect my investigation away from your company. I'm trying to redirect your investigation toward the real problems. Ethan's voice grew more passionate. You came after me because you see me as the villain. But I'm not. The system is the villain. The fragmented regulatory structure, the perverse incentives, the lack of price transparency, the lobbying, the insurance complexity, all of it. Go after that. Be the journalist who explains why drug prices are high in ways that might actually lead to solutions, instead of just outrage. I'll be your guide, your source, your partner in this. And if I say no, if I insist on writing specifically about Blackwell Pharmaceuticals, then I'll cooperate fully, give you whatever information you request, and accept whatever you publish. And I'll still think about you every night before I fall asleep, wondering what might have been if we'd met under different circumstances. Maya closed her eyes, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. You're very good at this, at saying exactly the right thing to make me question everything. I'm not being strategic. If I were being smart about this, I'd have hung up already, maybe blocked your number. Definitely would not be admitting that you've completely disrupted my usually disciplined focus. I've sat through 3 meetings today barely paying attention because I kept replaying our conversation, analyzing everything you said, wondering if you felt even a fraction of what I felt. What did you feel? The question escaped before Maya could stop it. Like I'd been sleepwalking through my life and suddenly someone shook me awake. Like all the careful control I maintain, all the emotional distance I keep, cracked open, and I remembered what it feels like to want something beyond quarterly reports and board approvals. You challenged me, argued with me, refused to be impressed by me, and it was the most alive I've felt in years. Maya's breath caught. She should hang up. She should definitely hang up instead, she heard herself say. I felt something too. On the balcony, and again today in your office. This pull, this intensity. But Ethan, I can't act on it. Not while I'm investigating your company. It would destroy my credibility, my career, everything I've worked for. I understand. I do. Which is why I'm proposing the alternative. Shift your focus to the industry, not just my company. Write that article. Publish it. And then, if you still want to, come back to investigating Blackwell specifically, or don't. Maybe by then, you'll see that we're potential allies, not adversaries. Maya spent the next week in a state of productive confusion. She'd taken Ethan's suggestion, reaching out to other pharmaceutical executives, regulators, patient advocacy groups. To her surprise, Ethan had kept his word, making introductions, opening doors that had been firmly closed before. She interviewed a former FDA commissioner about approval processes, a congressman about lobbying influence, patients who'd both benefited from and been bankrupted by prescription drugs. The story expanding beyond simple corporate villainy into systemic complexity. But she couldn't stop thinking about him. He called every few nights, always late, always starting with, "I know I shouldn't call." They talked about everything except pharmaceuticals, his love of obscure poetry, her embarrassing karaoke habit, his strained relationship with his father, her fear that she'd never write anything important enough to justify the sacrifices she'd made for her career. The conversations felt intimate, dangerous, like they were building something neither could name. Rachel noticed the change when they met for coffee. "You're glowing," she said suspiciously. "Either you got a great lead on your story or you met someone. Please tell me it's not both." Maya stirred her coffee, avoiding eye contact. "It's complicated." "Oh God, please don't tell me you're involved with someone you're investigating. That's like journalism ethics violation number 1. I'm not involved with anyone. We've just talked a few times." And I redirected my investigation anyway, focusing on industry-wide issues rather than specific companies, Maya. Rachel's voice was serious now. "Who is he?" She sighed. "Ethan Blackwell. The pharmaceutical CEO? The one you crashed a gala to confront?" "Maya, are you insane?" "Probably. But Rachel, he's not what I expected. He's complicated and thoughtful, and genuinely seems to want to fix the problems in his industry. And when we talk, it's like he actually sees me, not just what I can do for him, or what story I'm chasing. That's exactly what makes it dangerous." Rachel reached across the table, gripping Maya's hand. Powerful men are very good at making women feel special while manipulating them toward their own ends. You know this. You've written articles about it. This is different. It always feels different. That's the trap. Maya pulled her hand back, frustrated. Can't it be possible that he's genuine? That maybe we connected despite the circumstances, not because of them? Maybe. But you need to be very careful. Your career, your credibility, your safety even, could all be at risk. Don't let attraction cloud your judgment. Maya knew Rachel was right, but knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were different territories. And every time her phone rang late at night, every time Ethan's voice came through with that mix of confidence and vulnerability, she felt her defenses weakening. 2 weeks after their interview, Ethan invited her to tour one of Blackwell's research facilities. Purely professional, he assured her. "You're writing about the industry. You should see where innovation actually happens." Maya agreed, telling herself it was for the article, ignoring the way her pulse quickened at the prospect of seeing him again. The facility was located an hour outside the city, a sprawling complex of laboratories and clean rooms where scientists in white coats worked on treatments for everything from diabetes to rare genetic disorders. Ethan met her at the entrance, wearing slacks and a button-down rather than his usual suit, looking somehow more approachable and equally attractive. "Welcome to where we try to save lives," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. "I wanted you to see this before you finalized your article, to understand that behind the corporate structure and profit margins are real people working on real solutions." He guided her through the facility, introducing her to research teams, explaining clinical trials, showing her compounds in development. Maya took copious notes, asked questions, observed the genuine dedication of the scientists. This wasn't corporate window dressing. This was legitimate research that could help people. She found herself seeing Blackwell Pharmaceuticals in a new light, the complexity Ethan had insisted existed. In the oncology research wing, they stopped before a wall covered with photos. Patients, Ethan explained quietly. People whose lives were extended or saved by treatments developed in this building. We keep their pictures here to remind us why we do this work, why we push through the failed trials and regulatory hurdles and financial pressures. Maya studied the faces, men and women and children, smiling despite their obvious illness. One photo caught her attention, a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and a brave smile. "That's your mother, isn't it?" Ethan nodded, his expression softening with old grief. "That was taken a month before she died. I put her picture up there when I became CEO, a reminder that every compound we develop, every trial we run, is personal. These aren't just patients, they're someone's mother, someone's child, someone's whole world." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm sorry. I know I said that before, but I mean it. No one should have to watch their parents suffer like that. No, they shouldn't, which is why I'm trying to change things, even if it's slower and more complicated than I'd like." Ethan turned to her, his gray eyes intense. "You've seen the research now, the dedication, the human cost of failure. Does it change anything? Your perspective on the industry?" "It complicates it," Maya admitted. "Makes it harder to write a simple narrative of good and evil. Which I suppose was your point. My point was to show you the truth. All of it. The profits and the purpose, the failures and the hope." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "You asked me once how I sleep at night. The answer is, I sleep slightly better, knowing that in this building, people are working on cures for diseases that don't have them yet. It's not enough to justify all the problems, but it's something." They were standing too close, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. Maya knew she should step back, maintain professional distance, but she couldn't make herself move. "Ethan," she started, but didn't know how to finish the sentence. "I know." He lifted his hand, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "This is the part where I'm supposed to keep my distance, respect the boundaries, act like a professional source. But Maya, I'm tired of pretending I don't feel this connection. Tell me you don't feel it too, and I'll stop. I'll be whatever you need me to be for your article and nothing more." "I can't tell you that," Maya whispered. "Because it would be a lie." "Then what do we do?" "Because I've never been good at waiting for things I want. And I've never wanted anything as much as I want to kiss you right now." Her breath caught. "If you kiss me, it changes everything. I can't write about your company. Maybe can't write about the industry at all without bias. My editors would question my objectivity. Other journalists would accuse me of being compromised. And if I don't kiss you, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Ethan's hand moved to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Sometimes the safe choice isn't the right choice. Before Maya could overthink it, before her rational mind could catalog all the reasons this was a terrible idea, she closed the distance between them. The kiss started gentle, tentative, a question more than an answer. Then Ethan's other hand came up to frame her face, and he deepened the kiss, pouring weeks of tension and longing into it. Maya responded, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer, lost in the sensation of finally giving in to what they'd both been fighting. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "That was either the best decision I've ever made, or the worst. I'm not sure which yet." Maya laughed shakily. "Join the club. But Ethan, we need to talk about what this means. For the article. For us. For everything. Come to my apartment tonight. We'll talk, figure this out, decide what comes next. No pressure, no agenda. Just honest conversation about where we go from here. Maya knew she should say no. Every professional instinct screamed at her to maintain boundaries, to finish the article before complicating things further. But she'd already crossed the line by kissing him. Might as well be honest about where things stood. Okay, tonight. But we really do need to talk. Not just, she gestured vaguely between them. I know. Though for the record, I'm very interested in the not just part too. He grinned, looking younger and less burdened than she'd ever seen him. But talking first. I promise. That evening, Maya stood outside Ethan's building, a glass tower in the most expensive part of the city. The doorman, clearly expecting her, directed her to a private elevator, requiring a key code Ethan had texted. She rode up to the penthouse, her stomach fluttering with nerves and anticipation. Ethan opened the door before she could knock, barefoot and casual in jeans and a fitted black shirt. His apartment was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views, modern furniture in grays and blacks, a kitchen that looked barely used, bookshelves overflowing with eclectic collections. It was elegant but lived in, personal in ways she hadn't expected. Wine? He offered, already moving to the kitchen. I have a very nice Bordeaux open, or I can make coffee if you prefer Wineworks. Maya set her bag down, moving to the windows. You can see the entire city from here. It's one of the perks of obscene wealth, Ethan said, bringing 2 glasses and the bottle. That and never having to stand in line for anything. Must be nice. It's isolating, actually. When everyone treats you differently because of money, you start to forget what genuine human connection feels like. He handed her a glass, their fingers brushing. Until someone crashes a gala pretending to be a doctor just to accuse you of moral bankruptcy. That felt pretty genuine, Maya laughed despite her nerves. I probably should have led with an interview request instead. But would I have agreed? Probably not. So in a weird way, your deception led to this honesty. They sat on the couch facing the windows, the city sparkling below them like a blanket of stars. Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. We need to address the elephant in the room. Your article. Maya nodded, sipping her wine for courage. I can't write about Blackwell Pharmaceuticals specifically. Not now. It would be unethical given our personal involvement. But I can still write about the industry as a whole, the systemic issues we discussed. Your company would be mentioned only as one example among many, not the focus. That's fair. And after it's published? After it's published, she took a breath. If you want to pursue this, whatever this is, I'm open to it. But Ethan, you need to understand what you're getting into. I'm not going to stop being a journalist. I'm not going to stop investigating pharmaceutical issues. There will always be that tension between my work and your industry. I wouldn't want you to stop. What I find attractive about you isn't separate from your work. It's integral to who you are. You're passionate, principled, willing to fight for what you believe in. Those qualities don't turn off when you're not writing. He set down his glass, taking her hand. I'm not asking you to change or compromise your values. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of your life while you continue being exactly who you are. That's a pretty speech, Maya said softly. But reality is more complicated. What happens when I investigate something related to your company? When I write articles criticizing pharmaceutical practices? We'll be on opposite sides professionally. Then we fight about it at home and make up afterward, Ethan said with a slight smile. Adult relationships involve disagreement. I'd rather fight with you than agree with someone boring. Besides, having a partner who challenges me, who keeps me ethically honest, who won't let me hide behind corporate justifications, That's not a liability. That's a gift. You're very sure about this. About us. We barely know each other. I know enough. I know you're brilliant and brave and have this annoying habit of making me question everything I thought I believed I know. That when I'm with you, I feel more like myself than I have in years. I know I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that night on the balcony. That feels like enough to start with. The rest we figure out as we go. Maya set down her wine glass, turning to face him fully. What if I write something that damages your company? What if my article leads to investigations, lawsuits, regulatory action? Then I'll deal with it. My company should be able to withstand scrutiny. If it can't, if we're doing things that don't hold up under investigation, maybe we deserve whatever comes. I'd rather have integrity than protection. Ethan's hand tightened on hers. I won't ask you to pull punches or soften criticism. All I ask is fairness, which you've already shown you're capable of. You adjusted your investigation when presented with new information. You're willing to see nuance. That's all I need. They talked for hours about boundaries and expectations, about how to navigate the obvious conflicts between their professional lives. They agreed on transparency, on honest communication, on maintaining clear separation between Maya's journalistic work and their personal relationship. It wouldn't be easy. It might not even be possible. But they wanted to try. When the conversation finally wound down, when the wine was gone and the city lights had dimmed toward dawn, Ethan pulled Maya closer on the couch. "Stay," he murmured against her hair. "I'm not ready for this night to end. I should go home. I have an article to finish. Your article can wait a few more hours." He kissed her temple, her cheek, the corner of her mouth. "Unless you're having second thoughts." Maya turned her head, capturing his lips in a kiss that answered his question. No second thoughts. Just first thoughts about how complicated this is going to be. "Complicated can be good," Ethan whispered between kisses. "Simple is boring." They moved to his bedroom, a continuation of the earlier kiss at the research facility, but deeper now, unhurried, with the weight of decision behind it. Ethan was patient, attentive, making sure Maya was certain about every step. When she woke hours later, dawn breaking through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she found him already awake, watching her with an expression that made her heart ache. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi yourself. Sleep okay?" "Better than I have in months, actually." Maya stretched, then suddenly remembered. "Oh God, I need to get home. Shower, finish my article. My editor is expecting the draft by tomorrow." Ethan kissed her forehead. "Go be brilliant. Write something that changes minds. I'll be here when you're done." Maya finished the article 3 days later, a comprehensive examination of pharmaceutical pricing that explained the systemic issues without vilifying individual companies. She interviewed patients and executives, regulators and advocates, building a nuanced picture of an industry caught between profit motives and public health needs. Blackwell Pharmaceuticals was mentioned only in passing, one company among many navigating impossible contradictions. When her editor read it, he called immediately. "This is different from what you pitched, but it's better. More substantive, more fair, more likely to actually influence policy discussions rather than just generating outrage clicks. I'm running it as the cover story next month." Maya hung up feeling relieved and terrified. The article was out of her hands now, would be judged by readers and critics, might change things, or might sink without notice. But she'd written it with integrity, following the truth wherever it led, even when it complicated her initial assumptions. That felt like enough. She texted Ethan. "Article's done. Published next month. Want to celebrate?" His response came immediately. "Already ordered dinner to my place. Your favorite Thai food. assuming I remembered correctly from our conversation about your college days. Come over when you're ready." Maya smiled, gathering her things. She was walking into uncharted territory, dating a billionaire CEO while continuing to write about his industry, maintaining professional boundaries while navigating personal intimacy. It was messy and complicated, and probably ill-advised by every standard of journalistic ethics. But as she rode the elevator up to Ethan's penthouse, as the door opened, and she saw him smiling at her with genuine warmth, she thought maybe, just maybe, some rules were worth bending. "Congratulations," Ethan said, pulling her into his arms, "on finishing the article and on being brave enough to write something honest. It's going to generate controversy. Some people will say, I went too soft on the industry. Others will say I was too critical. I'll probably get accused of bias from both directions. Good. That means you hit the right balance." He kissed her softly. "I'm proud of you." They ate dinner on his balcony, the city spread below them, talking about everything and nothing. Maya told him about her brother's cancer treatment, the medical bills that had driven her to journalism in the first place. Ethan shared more about his mother, about taking over the company at 28 and feeling completely unprepared, about the pressure of trying to honor his father's legacy while changing everything his father had built. "Do you think we're crazy?" Maya asked as the night deepened. "Trying to make this work despite all the obvious complications?" "Probably," Ethan admitted, refilling their wine glasses. "But I've spent my entire adult life making the safe, rational, calculated decision, optimizing for board approval and shareholder value and public perception. And you know what? It's left me wealthy and successful and completely hollow. You're the first thing in years that feels like it matters beyond quarterly reports." "That's a lot of pressure," Maya said softly. "What if I disappoint you? What if this doesn't work out the way you're hoping? Then we'll have tried something real instead of settling for safe. I'd rather risk disappointment than guarantee emptiness." Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. "Besides, I have a feeling disappointing me would require you to stop being yourself, and that seems unlikely. You barely know me. We've spent, what, a few days together? Had some intense conversations? That's not enough to base a relationship on. Then we take time to really know each other. No rushing, no pressure, just seeing where this goes." "But Maya, I meant what I said before. From the moment you called me out on that balcony, challenging me without fear, I've been drawn to you. And every conversation since has only deepened that pull. Maybe it's too fast, maybe it's too complicated, but it's also too powerful to ignore." Maya squeezed his hand, feeling the truth of his words resonate in her own chest. "Okay, we try this, but with clear boundaries. My journalism stays separate from us. I don't give you advance notice of articles. You don't ask for editorial input. We're partners personally, but professionals in our work, agreed. And if you write something critical of Blackwell, we discuss it after publication, not before. I won't try to influence your work. You won't apologize for doing your job. And if this gets too complicated, if the conflicts become unmanageable, then we reassess, like adults, with honesty and respect." Ethan stood, pulling her up with him. "But I don't think it will come to that. I think we're both stubborn enough to make this work through sheer force of will." Maya laughed, letting him draw her close. "You might be right, though stubbornness isn't always a virtue. With us, it might be." He kissed her, slow and deep, and Maya let herself sink into it, into him, into the impossible possibility of building something real in the midst of professional chaos. The next few months were a study in contradictions. Professionally, Maya continued investigating pharmaceutical issues, publishing articles that sometimes praised industry innovations and sometimes excoriated corporate practices. Ethan never asked to read them before publication, never pressured her to soften criticisms, though she could see him tense when she mentioned working on pieces related to drug pricing or corporate lobbying. They learned to compartmentalize, to leave work, tensions at their respective office doors, and come together as partners rather than adversaries. Personally, they fell deeper into each other with surprising ease. Ethan introduced Maya to his sister, who immediately liked Maya's refusal to be impressed by wealth. Maya brought Ethan to her parents' modest home for dinner, where he charmed her mother and bonded with her father over their shared experience of watching loved ones struggle with medical costs. Rachel remained skeptical, but admitted Ethan seemed genuinely devoted to Maya in ways that went beyond manipulation. There were challenges. An article Maya published about pharmaceutical lobbying influences mentioned Blackwell Pharmaceuticals among companies spending millions on political contributions. Ethan was furious, not because she'd included his company, but because the article failed to note that most of Blackwell's political spending went toward supporting healthcare reform, not blocking it. They fought for 2 days, their first serious conflict, before finally sitting down and really listening to each other's perspectives. "You're right," Maya admitted. "I should have included that context. I was so focused on the total spending amounts that I didn't adequately explain what the money was being spent on. It painted everyone with the same brush. And you're right that the optics are bad, regardless of intent," Ethan conceded. "I can't expect the public to trust that our lobbying is benevolent when other companies use the same tools malevolently. Maybe we need to be more transparent about our political spending." They made up that night, their argument somehow bringing them closer rather than pushing them apart. Learning they could fight and recover, disagree, and still respect each other felt foundational to building something lasting. 6 months into their relationship, Ethan invited Maya to a medical conference where Blackwell was presenting new research on affordable insulin alternatives. "We've been working on this for 3 years, he explained, obviously excited, a new formulation that's easier to manufacture, more stable at room temperature, and could potentially cost 1/10 of current prices. It's not a solution to everything we discussed, but it's a start." Maya attended the presentation, sitting in the back of the conference room, watching Ethan command the stage with confident expertise. He presented data showing the new insulin's efficacy, its safety profile, its potential to dramatically reduce costs for patients. The audience of doctors and researchers asked pointed questions, and he answered each with thorough knowledge and genuine enthusiasm. After the presentation, a young doctor approached Ethan. "My daughter has diabetes. We've been rationing her insulin because we can't afford the full prescribed dose even with insurance. If what you're presenting is real, if this actually becomes available at the prices you're projecting, you'll save her life. Maybe save our family from bankruptcy." Ethan's expression softened, and Maya saw him blink rapidly, fighting emotion. "We're fast-tracking FDA approval. If everything goes as planned, this should be on the market within 18 months. In the meantime, please contact our patient assistance program. We'll make sure your daughter has the insulin she needs." Maya watched from across the room, her heart swelling with complicated emotions. This was the man she'd once viewed as a corporate villain, now moved to tears by a father's desperation, now working to create solutions rather than just maximizing profits. He was flawed, trapped within systemic constraints he didn't create, but genuinely trying to bend a broken system toward justice. She'd spent years chasing simple stories of good and evil, and instead had found the messy, difficult, beautiful reality of someone trying to do right within wrong structures. That night, in Ethan's apartment, Maya curled against him on the couch. "That doctor today, the one with the diabetic daughter? Did you mean what you said about the patient assistance program?" Of course, Ethan's arm tightened around her. "Why would you question that?" "Because 6 months ago I wouldn't have believed you. I would have assumed it was PR, empty promises designed to deflect criticism. But now, knowing you, I believe you'll follow through. That you'll personally make sure that child gets insulin. You've changed too, you know. When we met, you saw the world in black and white: corporations bad, patients good, profits evil, altruism noble. But you've learned to see the gray spaces, the impossible trade-offs, the people trying to do good within flawed systems. Is that what you are? Someone trying to do good within a flawed system? I'm trying. Some days I succeed, most days I fail. All days I'm aware of the gap between what I want to do and what I'm able to do. But having you in my life, knowing you're watching, expecting better from me, it makes me try harder. You're my conscience, Maya Collins. She tilted her head up to kiss him. That's a lot of responsibility. What if I fail at keeping you ethically honest? Impossible. You're constitutionally incapable of looking away from injustice. It's one of your most annoying and most attractive qualities. He kissed her back, deep and lingering. I love you. I've loved you since you stood on that balcony calling me out without fear. I just needed a few months to be sure you felt the same. Maya's breath caught I do. Love you, I mean. Even though it complicates everything. Even though my colleagues would be horrified. Even though loving a pharmaceutical CEO goes against every simple narrative I used to believe. I love you, then marry me. She pulled back, staring at him. What? Ethan shifted, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. I know it's fast. I know we have complications and conflicts and a dozen reasons to wait. But I also know I want to spend my life with someone who challenges me to be better, who won't let me hide behind excuses, who loves me enough to call me out when I'm wrong. Marry me, Maya. Let's figure out the complications together. Maya opened the box with trembling hands. Inside was a simple platinum band with a single diamond, elegant and understated, exactly what she would have chosen. You're serious. Completely. I've never been more certain of anything, including every business decision that's made me a billionaire. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I don't want to waste time being cautious when I could be building a life with you. My editor will kill me. My sources will question my objectivity. Other journalists will say I've been compromised, probably, and we'll deal with it together. You'll maintain your integrity by being even more rigorous in your work. I'll support whatever boundaries you need to maintain credibility. We'll be transparent about our relationship so no one can accuse us of hiding anything. It won't be easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. Maya looked at the ring, then at Ethan, seeing the hope and vulnerability in his eyes. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from adversaries to partners, from suspicion to trust, from simple narratives to complex truths. She thought about the doctor at the conference, about Ethan's mother's photo in the research facility, about all the ways love complicated justice, and justice complicated love. Yes, she said, finally. Yes, I'll marry you. We'll figure out the complications together. Ethan slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Maya felt the weight of her decision settle over her. She was marrying a pharmaceutical CEO while continuing to write about pharmaceutical corruption. It would be messy and complicated and probably generate endless controversy, but it would also be real and honest and built on mutual respect rather than convenient fantasy. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Rachel stood as Maya's maid of honor, still skeptical, but admitting Ethan had proven himself through consistent action rather than empty words. The ceremony was simple, their vows honest about the complications they faced and their commitment to navigating them together. Maya continued her journalism, now with a disclosure at the end of relevant articles noting her marriage to a pharmaceutical CEO and her commitment to objective reporting despite the relationship. Some readers questioned her credibility. Others appreciated her transparency. Her work became even more rigorous, as if she was constantly proving she hadn't been compromised. Ethan continued running Blackwell Pharmaceuticals, pushing for reforms where he could, accepting constraints where he must, always with Maya's voice in his head, asking if he could do better. The affordable insulin formulation was approved and launched, dramatically reducing costs for diabetic patients. It didn't solve everything, didn't fix the broken system, but it helped. That felt like enough. 3 years into their marriage, Maya published a book about pharmaceutical pricing, a nuanced examination of systemic failures told through personal stories of patients, executives, researchers, and advocates. The book won awards, generated policy discussions, and was credited with helping push through healthcare reforms that increased price transparency and accountability. In the acknowledgments, she thanked Ethan for teaching her to see nuance, for challenging her assumptions, and for loving her enough to support her work, even when it complicated his life. That evening, celebrating the book's success, they stood on Ethan's balcony, the same place Maya had confronted him years earlier. "Remember when you thought I was the villain in your story?" Ethan asked, pulling her close. "You were," Maya replied with a smile. "A complicated, morally ambiguous villain trying to do good within a broken system. My favorite kind. And now? Now you're my husband. Still complicated, still morally ambiguous, still trying to do good, but mine." She kissed him as the city lights sparkled below, thinking about how far they'd come from that night, when she'd pretended to be a doctor to confront a billionaire. She'd found more than a story. She'd found a partner, a challenge, a love that complicated and enriched everything she thought she knew about justice and compromise, and building something real in an imperfect world. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments on a scale from 0 to 10. What's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.